You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for hitting that play button. This is another episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast. Before we get to today's episode, I just want to say thank you to everyone who continues to share the podcast. It helps us out immensely. And for those of you asking, I am still going to do the trailer project in July or maybe even August now. I'm a little behind schedule on a few things. But if you're interested in coming out and you're interested in hearing more about the project, just shoot me an email. It's in the show notes. And I'm basically just looking for a few more crew positions, and then I'm going to start opening up the casting and stuff like that once I have a few more details ironed out. It's just a fun trailer project. We'll take a weekend. It's going to be a paid gig, so honestly, it's going to be pretty fun. And thanks everyone keeps asking about it, and hopefully it won't drag on too much longer where I keep having to push things back. But without further ado, on this episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast, I talked to two guys who have been named some of the best networkers out in Hollywood. These guys are both fantastic, and we talk a lot about networking, getting your foot in the door, meeting people at parties. I mean, not only do they attend parties, but they also throw their own parties. This is episode 216 with guests Erman Bradi and Brandon Waiters.
You're listening to the Dave Bullis Podcast.
Yeah, well, growing up, I always had a strong interest in going to the movie theaters and watching movies, reading books, and, in my own imagination, creating that book within my own mind. And as I got older into the military, a lot of our off time, we would watch movies. There's not much else to do. So I started watching movies over and over. And at a certain point, it's more like, okay, what else can I learn about this movie? So I started doing, whether it was research or watching behind the scenes. And I just got more and more interested within the filmmaking aspect, producing, directing, all that. And while I was in the military, I actually had the opportunity to do security for the guys, Michael Bay and his team, for the Transformers movies. And that just basically kind of reinforced my interest. I was like, you know what, this is definitely what I want to do. And once I got out, I, started building my connections and going from there. Met Erman. And we built a couple companies, and we're still pushing it.
So when you were working with security for Michael Bay, was that like all the Transformers movies or just a particular one?
It was the first one that was based out in Alamogordo, White Sands area. And then I ended up moving once I got out of the military. I moved out here to, Tucson, Arizona at that time. And they started filming, I want to say it was the second one, out here in the Boneyard. So I was around for two of the films.
Gotcha. Because I remember the second one is the one where, or maybe it was the third one, where they went to Egypt, and I can't remember which Transformers that is, but I remember they went to Egypt for one of them. And I just remember, like, well, not just Egypt, but I remember they were going to all over these different places like that, and I'm always just wondering, about security, about places like that, because you brought it up, because you see all these big productions, and even when they're here in Philadelphia or in New York, usually they have PAs that are like guarding entrances and exits, and I always think to myself, you got to have somebody else, a 20-year-old PA telling you not to go down an alleyway or whatever is sometimes just doesn't cut it.
Right. Yeah, what we did more so was security for the actual aircraft and the flight lines. Anything that was military related, making sure no one was going where they weren't supposed to. Certain parts of aircraft aren't supposed to be filmed, and then making sure the filmmakers aren't being bugged by anybody trying to get on base just to see them. So that was kind of my job at that time.
Gotcha. And that's what I wasn't completely off base when I was talking about the PA, because I was wondering, because you mentioned you kept people off, certain people off the out of their way, which is important. Really cool, quick story. I was actually one time filming at on an airstrip, and we got approached by one of the, I forget what you even call it, maybe a director of whatever, And she goes, okay, you guys have to stop filming at this particular time. And we said, why? And she goes, there's a VIP coming in. And so as we're filming, these 2 jets came in. And then we were told that we absolutely had to end right now. And later on, we found out that was Joe Biden coming in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Where was it on a military installation or?
No, it was a airport up here in Philadelphia.
Oh, cool.
So apparently, I mean, I don't think he landed there. I think the airspace, like everything, had to be cleared out, or maybe he did because they said if we didn't leave, we were gonna get stuck there.
Oh yeah, probably security was gonna get super tight or something.
Yeah, and that's when we saw the jets. Like, these are fighter jets, and I was like, oh yeah, this isn't, you know what I mean? This is kind of odd. So that's when we just kind of broke down and left. But yeah, that's my one brush. Then I later on I got to meet Joe Biden again at another event. But I'm sorry, that's a whole other story. I'm not, I don't think people want to hear me talk about Joe Biden.
No, you're good.
That's for another episode.
Yeah, the Joe Biden episode.
So my question is when you met him the second time, did you tell him thank you for interrupting your filming?
I only got to shake his hand for and it was like boom, he was gone. I didn't get to talk to him or anything. So.
Oh, okay.
Because it was in passing, and it was, but that's a whole nother story though. And then also joining us is Erman. Erman, I want to say, thank you so much for coming on, because you and I have been back and forth. And you and I met even before I met Brandon. You and I have been talking back and forth. And then I had on a mutual friend of ours, who name escapes me at the moment. Damn it! It always happens. Yeah, but I always do this. I always blank out when I'm interviewing people. But she and I were talking, and this is gonna kill me. She's gonna murder me that I can't remember her name right now. Anyways, so
what does she do?
She lives in Dallas. She's a consultant. She does Whitney Davis. There you go.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm an excellent storyteller. Hey, remember that person? You did that thing. Yeah.
So, that one city, that one state. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That person. She does that thing. Yeah. So. So she kept saying when she was on, she's like, you got to have Erman on. You got to have Erman on. So I said, you know what? I've been friends with him for a while. I've been trying to get him on, but it's like we can never actually get our schedules to meet.
Yeah, we've been Twitter friends for maybe 5 years now.
Yeah.
We just kept like in passing, like, hey, what are you doing this Saturday? Or like it's like we always miss each other, but hey, we have each other now, so that's what's important.
Yeah, it's like 2 ships in the night, my friend. We were just constantly.
There you go.
So I remember when I first met you on Twitter too. Again, the power of Twitter through networking, and I remember us going back and forth, and now and then when we got to talking again pretty regularly. I was like, oh great, he's built up this following. I see all these awesome things you're doing, and now I'm glad that we could actually talk, because I want to actually we can sort of start getting into this stuff. So I'm going to ask you the same question, Erman, is how did you get started in this whole wacky world that we call the film industry?
So I also had a curiosity in storytelling when I was a kid. I was just like anyone else in the 90s. I was a big fan of Power Rangers and all that stuff. So as a kid, I thought it'd be cool to be like that on TV. I thought I would want to be a performer. So I would play pretend with my brothers, at home. And be Power Rangers and other kind of superheroes. Come 6th grade, I entered a very smart school. It was a magnet school. That's what we called it in Virginia Beach. And, I found myself not so academically gifted as other people. So I kind of used the outlet of writing to get away, if that makes sense. I was given the opportunity to join acting class or other electives, but I didn't see a lot of Asian Americans on television, so I thought, okay, I probably need to go towards another route. So, I would be sitting there in math class and science class, and while other people are writing formulas, I would be writing like stories in my notebook, So, I kind of cultivated my love of writing in middle school, and then in high school, all my English teachers were like, yeah, you need to be a writer. You need to pursue this more. So like every year they'd say the exact same thing, and I'd be like, okay. So I took their words to consideration, and I went to film school out in Virginia Beach. After film school, I did a lot. I did some internships here and there in Virginia Beach, and then it kind of led me to an internship in LA. So I went to Mosaic, which shares the same floor as Atlas Entertainment. So Atlas Entertainment does all like the big movies, like they just did Justice League, they did Wonder Woman, they did the Dark Knight series. Mosaic was more so the literary / management side. So I learned how to do script coverage there. I did a lot of script reading. And after that, I went back to Virginia Beach, and I hopped on social media and kind of created a name for myself on social media. So I created the name Erman LA because it was kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. People thought I was in LA, and I was not in LA. So I would get all these organizations contacting me because they thought, because through social media, they thought I was in LA. So there was these conferences, these screenwriting organizations asking to hire me, and I kind of played along. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do this. So when I did the conferences, when I did other script coverage for other organizations, it kind of segued into doing events. It segued into doing celebrity interviews and interviewing filmmakers, etc. So all that kind of snowballed into just a network of people. So I told myself, before I moved to LA, by the way, it took me 5 years. Before I moved to LA, I want to know at least 500 people. So that was my goal, was to just create a network of people. Because I know a lot of people kind of rush into the city without a plan, without knowing anybody. And I was not going to be that person. So, it took me a few years to just snowball my network. So that's why I started doing events. Me and Brandon do competitions, screenwriting competitions, filmmaking competitions. So it was a 6 year plan for me.
Yeah, do you find that's kind of common where people just move to LA without a plan?
I've had a lot of friends who lasted like a month, 2 months, because, I get it. A lot of people just want to do it, and it's hard, man, because I'm not talking bad about anybody, but some people come here, they do the whole, bartender thing, waitress thing, waiter thing, and they're miserable, and they don't know anybody in the industry, and they come out to these like club events even, or they expect to meet like a producer at the bar. They it's funny, and and like I said, I wasn't gonna be that person. I wanted to know people beforehand before coming out, so I just laid a foundation, whether it be social media, through events, through just asking people to take meetings. That was my foundation. So I did that for many years, and it's been growing. It's been growing. So for other people who want to come to the city, I would just suggest have a plan, or even network beforehand, before coming out here, before you change your address. Make sure you know quite a few people.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean, Erman. I've had friends too who have moved out to LA without a plan, and some have lasted a couple months. Some lasted a week. I actually had a friend who moved out there for a week. He moved.
No way.
Yeah, yep. He actually flew out there, and he was like, I just got to do it. On a whim, he just got all this stuff together. He didn't really know anybody per se. He had a few friends here and there, but they were all in the same boat. They were all struggling, working as bartenders or whatever, hoping to meet somebody at a bar, just like you said. And he was here for he was there for about a week, and then he said, I just can't do it. He ran out of money. He had nowhere else to go, and he actually got the plane ride back, and that was it, and has never been back. So
it's sad. I know. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to make a joke, but I was just going to say the city kind of crushed his soul. But
oh no. Yeah, I know a fellow film student of mine who came to LA, thought he had the best script ever, said to himself, I'm going to get hired in a month. And a month went by and nothing happened, so he left.
Yeah.
So,
as we sort of talk about, the how a lot of people have gone and experienced, the sort of the dark side of it. Have either of you, Brandon or Erman, have either one of you had somebody who's actually gone out there and gotten a hit or gotten I don't know what, maybe in play, I guess, I don't know. Have either of you ever known somebody like that who's actually gone out there and kind of struck gold?
Oh yeah. Actually, we've had a few people from our MixKnowledgy events that have, networked through our events, and just by doing that, they've been able to secure some type of job. Erman, I don't know if we're allowed to, say names or anything, but if we are, I'll let you say.
I don't want to say names, but yeah. But going off of what Brandon said, we had somebody who come in from my home city. She came in, and a week after coming in, she went to one of our events, and lo and behold, she got a assistant position with an actor that's pretty well known nowadays, because he came to the event too. So stuff like that. I mean, we've been blessed to be able to help people, other people. But I do know somebody who came out here, having the talent. She didn't strike gold right away, but maybe like a year or two later, she got one of those. What do you call it? Those comedy troupes that have those writing initiatives. It was one of those things where she had like one of those writing. She became a member of one of those writing troupes based on her talent. So it can happen. It can happen, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen to some people, but a lot of people just don't have plans. So just going back on that, yeah, it does kind of crush you here if you don't have any goals lined up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say it could also be a lot of luck, being at the right place at the right time and bumping into somebody who, has the ability to hire you, at a Starbucks or whatever. So I recommend if, anybody that either they're not from LA or they are from LA, get out to as many like networking events as possible, because you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah. And dress nicely.
Yeah.
It's funny, Erman. I remember one time I went to an event here in Philadelphia, and I was going to talk to this person. Again, I'm not using any names or anything. It's just just a story. And I ran into this person who I was going to meet randomly, because I looked for him when I got there. He wasn't there. An hour or so went by, and finally, as I was getting ready to leave, there he is. This guy was so belligerently drunk. The bartender was trying to take his keys away from him so he didn't try to drive home.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that at networking events. Erman and I kind of have a funny story, and I'll try to make it quick so I don't take up too much time. But just to go off of, you never know who you're going to meet and you never know where. Erman, myself, and another friend, we decided to go see a movie at the ArcLight in LA, and we ended up, after the movie, it was War of the Worlds, right? Or not War of the Worlds, War of the Planet of the Apes, right, Erman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we finished the movie, and we walk out, and I tell Erman I have to go use the restroom. So I go to the restroom real quick, and while I'm in the restroom, he ends up texting me, but I don't get his text because the service is in the little bathroom area. So I come walking out, and he's like, "Hey, man, he's over at the bar area." He's all excited. And I'm like, "Who?" I thought he was talking about our friend who went to go validate his parking. And I was like, "Who, our friend?" And he's like, "No, man, didn't you get my text?" And I was like, "No." And so we're walking up the stairs during this conversation, and he's like, "QT, Quentin Tarantino." And I'm like, "No way." Like, I started shaking with excitement. I look over, and there's Quentin Tarantino standing at the bar with his fiance. And that was such a cool opportunity. We hung out there for like 30 minutes. We chatted, shook his hand. Super cool moment.
So was he actually approachable when he went up to him?
Yeah, he totally was. He's going to let me buy a drink for his fiance, but when she came back, she was in the restroom as well. When she came back, he told her, like, "Hey, these guys are going to buy you a drink." And she's like, "No, it's all right. I'm not thirsty." So, he came over to us and told us, like, "Hey, don't worry about it." So that was kind of a little letdown because, we saw it as an opportunity to chat with him some more once we brought the drink over.
But funny story is, after that happened, we kind of like took the L. We took the loss, and we sat down for like 30 minutes trying to figure out what's our next move. How do we play this? So we sat there for 30 minutes, like just trying to figure it out. And finally, we got the courage again to reapproach him and say, "Hey, this is what we do."
Yeah. We gave him our business cards, and then we shook his hand one more time, and we took off. We don't want to bug him too much, but he was super approachable. He was cool. I don't know if anyone's seen that clip of him where, I think it was up in what's it called, Parks. Yeah, up at Sundance where the paparazzi's filming him, and he kind of goes off on the dude at Starbucks, kind of pushes him. He's not like that. I mean, the dude just wants his own space, and I think he asked that dude, hey, leave me alone, man. And the dude was kind of antagonizing the situation. He's not like that. You respect him like a human being, and he's going to treat you like one. I asked him if I could take a picture, and he said he appreciated that I was there. He definitely shook my hand, but he didn't feel like taking pictures at the moment. So, I respected his wishes, and I didn't get punched.
Well, I mean, you were in the Air Force, though, Brandon. You could take care of yourself, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if they're still doing the hand-to-hand or if they're just going all BJJ, but I'm sure either way you can handle yourself, right?
Oh, yeah. They teach you all that. My career field was security forces, which if people aren't familiar with that in the Air Force, it's basically the MPs for the Air Force, military police. So, yeah, we have to go through all that training over at San Antonio's Air Force Base, which is also known as Lackland Air Force Base.
Yeah. So, Brandon can totally take on QT, for sure.
We got to talk to the UFC, see if we can get this to happen. But so let me just ask you this: you guys, you did everything professional. Obviously, you don't want to be that person that goes up and says like, "Oh, here's my screenplay" or "Here's my movie pitch." You don't want to be that person, obviously, because the three of us know better than that. So let me ask you this: just looking back on it, is there anything that you guys would have done differently?
Yeah. One thing I would say, somebody like Quentin Tarantino, there's a handful of people in the film industry that, I would love to meet just because I'm a big fan. And I would say we probably approached him before we gathered our senses. We were super excited. Your adrenaline takes over and you kind of start shaking. So I would say take a deep breath, realize that they're people too, and approach them calmly. Because honestly, Erman can attest to this. I love Quentin's movies, Pulp Fiction,
Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs. I was trying to think of the one with Jamie Foxx. It's slipping my mind right now.
Django Unchained?
Yeah, Django Unchained. I love all those movies. So when I saw them, I kind of like lost my senses. Instead of being like a filmmaker who wants to work with him one day, I became a fan. And I lost my senses for that moment. And instead of, approaching him to talk about, like, hey, I'm a filmmaker too, it was more so like, hey, can I take a picture with you? Like, I didn't know what to say. I kind of lost my brain for a moment. But like Erman said, we sat down at the tables near the bar where he was sitting, and we kind of talked to each other and, took deep breaths and figured out how we could reapproach him professionally. And he was super cool. He took our business cards, thanked us for being respectful to him, and his fiance tried to give a muffin to our other friend that was there. So, I mean, they're cool people. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have, for me, just going back on the whole planning thing, we could have, I guess, teamed up first and kind of strategized before approaching him. Because Brandon calls me the less shy one of the two. But for me, like, as a fan, Brandon could tell you, I stood behind Brandon. I was like, Brandon, like, I can't talk to him right now. Like, I'm sweating. Like, my knees are shaking right now, dude. So Brandon had a bigger gall that day. He approached and I kind of stood behind him like, yeah, what he said. Like, I was just super shy, man. And
he was my hype man that day. Yeah, what he said. Yeah, we want to take a picture.
So Erman was kind of like the Flavor Flav.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had friends who've actually I've had people on the podcast who've actually worked with Quentin, and actually they worked on Django together. It was his name is John Connor, not the guy from Terminator, but John Connor. He actually worked in the camera department for Django, and he was like, yeah, QT is one of the greatest guys to work with, and he goes, he knows his stuff, and he's just, the days are long, but he goes, everyone's having fun. He goes, Tarantino directs in his crazy way. He's energetic, and he goes, he's just an awesome guy, just in general to work with.
Yeah, I believe it because when we met him, he was the same way. He was like, "Oh, hey guys, hey!" Like super excited to meet us. So yeah, you can buy her a drink. Like I think that's just how he is. He has a energetic personality about him, whether he's actually shooting a film or if he's hanging out at a bar. He's just a really cool person.
Yeah, I saw a behind the scenes featurette one time of a scene he shot for not Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction. It's the twist scene, and he's like behind the camera dancing himself. So like that's the type of personality that we want to work with in the future. Those types of directors and producers and etc. who have fun while on set, not just we're not just militant on set. You do this, you do that, but who can provide a really energetic, fun atmosphere.
Exactly.
So, has there ever been another time though, where you've sort of been going on these networking events? Because I wanted to talk to you guys about networking and hustling in Hollywood. I know hustling sometimes can be a weird word. Sometimes it has a negative connotation, but I think it's a good thing now. When people say hustling, it's not. It just means you're grinding it out. You're working. You're trying to pursue something. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys mainly about is hustling and networking in Hollywood. And so, just to sort of to continue this conversation, what were some of the things that when you first got to town, maybe that or even just networking online with people like Erman, you mentioned this too earlier on about networking online. What are some of the things that you've done or you do now that really have benefited you and just finding and talking to people, like finding certain people to talk to, or even or even the best when people reach out to you and say, hey, or hey Brandon, hey Erman, I found you online. So what are some of the tips that you could share that of some stuff that's helped you out?
Oh yeah. Erman. Yeah, I'll go first. Just something that I've noticed, whether it's people reaching out to us because we are starting to produce projects, we're getting in contact with financiers who want to produce films that we're producing or whatever. The big thing is when you reach out to somebody is don't make it seem like you just want to use that person for their resources. You need to be more so like you want to build a relationship or friendship with that person. So like when Erman and I first got together, Erman was holding a event, and I could have been one of those people that just messaged Erman and was like, "Hey, Erman, like, can I get some tickets to your event? Like, hook me up, dude." I wasn't like that. I messaged Erman and I was like, "Hey, man, you know what? I'm actually a student at your school in Virginia, but I was taking the online master's program, and from there we just kept talking, and we built a friendship that turned into a partnership. So building actual relationship and not just trying to use somebody for their resources. And that's a very valuable tip I would share.
Yeah, and going off of that, like people may find it frustrating that building a relationship takes time, but it does take time. You're not gonna work with so and so because you message him one time and be like, "Hey, can I work with you?" No, it's gonna take a series of conversations before you finally work with somebody. So that is very key what Brandon said. Another thing I would say is kind of like podcasts like this. I would take even starting off, the last 3 or 4 years, I would take any interview, no matter how big or small it was, because if someone wants to work with me, they can literally Google me and see my history, my background. They can see my interviews, see what I'm about. So if someone approaches you about an interview, no matter how big or small it may feel, take it. So when I reach out to this, when we do events or do contests, when we do some outreach, I say, hey, here's some background on us. Would you like to do it with us or not? And because of the fact that we have searchable names, it does go in our favor.
So you mentioned big or small. I mean, so you've gotten, so you're doing a pretty small interview right now, Erman. But
No way! What?
So, but no.
This is THR.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's me, and then there's like the Mark Maron podcast, right? So, but no, it's all kidding aside, I realize that too. Erman is, there's. A couple of years ago when I was doing projects, I just sort of reached out and said, hey, what's out there? Because I didn't know. And there's so many people who wanted me to come on to do different things or do a podcast this is like when it was still in its somewhat infant stages. And there were different people who asked me to do like, articles, or not articles, but like an interview, and it'd be written up and stuff like that. And I started to realize, when people are going out to do projects, like let's just say you have a movie out, Erman, and you're looking to get publicity for it and everything. I think everybody wants to be in like the Hollywood Reporter, Variety. They also want to be on Mark Maron's podcast. They all this and that. But then I go on the flip side and I say, what if you just did, instead of just doing one interview to hit like 1 million people, what if you did 10 interviews that did 100,000 each, or 20 that did 10,000 each? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think you have more of a shot with the latter because most of us don't have friends that have 1 million reach in whatever they do, whether it be YouTube or podcasts. So I think that's something that a lot of filmmakers, especially indie filmmakers who have a budget of let's just say under 4 million or under 5, I don't know. Just use that as a barometer. If they have that, usually there's a market for that. There's a niche for that. And then also there's a lot of different ways you can play that in terms of going on to podcasts. Even when I get pitched to this podcast, I get so many emails, and that's why. And I'm like a little nobody in Philadelphia. I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to be like Mark Maron or Adam Carolla or any of these other guys. I mean, they must get floored every 5 seconds.
That's so true. Yeah. But see, also, if I was a celebrity and I was approached by a podcast like that's brand new and that had like maybe 2 listeners, I would actually take it, because what if that podcast blew up because of me? Then I can be like, hey, I helped this new, media company blow up. So who knows, man? You might be able to get like a big time filmmaker one day, and they help your numbers grow, and they can be like, hey, I helped Dave Bullis' podcast become what it is today.
I've actually reached out to a lot of people to kind of do that. Hopefully I end up being the filmmaker that does it for myself. You know what I mean? I could kind of be like the guy.
Hey. There you go. Even better.
Yeah, exactly. I like to be the guy who launched, and then you kind of have you kind of live in both worlds. Because, again, you just try, because I see people online all the time. They're always trying to get like, Kevin Smith or whoever on their podcast. And by the way, I think Quentin Tarantino, I think he's very smart for not getting on social media, because I think he realizes if he got on there, it would be nothing but people just pitching him with stuff.
Oh, geez. Absolutely.
So as we sort of talk, about, and then, that's again one of the reasons it's one of the bad spots of social media, but usually social media, I always tell people it's a tool like anything else, sometimes you can go really bad, sometimes you can go really well. And
right.
That's why I think a lot of celebrities, though, they get pitched all the time. Like, I mean, Kevin Smith uses it to kind of sort of dialogue with people sometimes. Tom Cruise just talks one way. You know what I mean? It's kind of, everything is kind of, how you wield it. And just before I forget, I wanted to mention too, Erman, you mentioned people reaching out to you on Twitter. I actually had somebody reach out to me on Instagram, and Instagram is slowly becoming my favorite social media site. And I had this company reach out to me, and they help you get they're a real estate company in Hollywood, and they started following me, and I followed them back, and they reached out to me immediately. So it's like an auto DM, and right off the bat they're asking if I'm in the market for a home out in Hollywood. And I'm just, I'm like, all right, we're already getting, the conversation just started, and you want to sell me a $30 million home. All right, sounds great.
Oh my God, dude! Wow, people.
Yeah, it was just funny, man, because I was like, usually, you'd have some kind of, I mean, I don't know, a pitch like that is really hard to swallow. Being like, hey, you want to buy a house out in Hollywood? I'm like, no, what the hell? That's a hell of a way to start something. But
Yeah.
because I had the writer of John Wick on the podcast, Derek Holstead, and Derek.
Oh, nice.
And Derek was even joking about that. He goes, yeah, his wife before he wrote John Wick was like, listen, when you write something, and sell it, we'll go and we'll buy a house in Malibu or whatever. And he goes, yeah, we went looking at houses after he sold John Wick, and they were starting at like 1.5 for these little dinky houses that were like absolutely nothing. And he's like, this is $1.5 million.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's just like the
crazy.
real estate market. Yeah, it's just crazy. The real estate market is just crazy, man. It's just, I don't know. I just always find that stuff funny, especially because I saw there was a news story recently about this house in California. It was foreclosed on, and it went for like 1.2 million or something like that, or something. And it was like this little dinky house that was in total disrepair. But the real estate market out there is just in such demand that's how it's that crappy house sold. So it just goes to show you, man. But just as we continue talking about networking, Brandon, I want to ask you, and then I'm going to throw the same question to you, Erman.
Okay.
What is like the worst networking experience you've ever had?
Ooh, that's a good question. Can I think of anything? I mean, most of my networking experiences have been pretty good. Erman, can you think of anything I've told you in the past that has gone wrong for me?
I don't think so, and I think you played it pretty safe.
Yeah, everything's gone good.
I've never met personally. Like, I don't have any stories of me like messing up, but I will say this: this is something I witnessed firsthand. We had an event back in my hometown, Virginia Beach, 2 years ago, and one of the main speakers was Alan Lankus, who was Oscar nominated for
Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah. So after the event, we had this mixer with all the speakers and all the attendees, and we were fortunate to have all the speakers come out to actually attend and hang out with the attendees. So that was cool. There was a person who approached a circle that Alan gathered. Like, there's 5 speakers, and so each speaker had like their own pocket of people talking to them. And so Alan was talking to somebody, or a group of people, and this random person, I guess, who came to the event, he approached him with a script in hand. Not just any script in hand, but it was crumpled up. Like, it was even like, first off, don't give someone your script first and foremost, like in the middle of a conversation. But like, it was like crumpled up, like stains all over it. It was so unprofessional. It was so bad. And Alan just looked at him like, yeah, like I forgot what he said, but I could just imagine what was going through his head. Like, wrong time, buddy. Don't do that ever. So that was like that's a big no-no when you literally give your script to somebody in the middle of a mixer or middle of a conversation. That's like the absolutely wrong way to do it. So I was very embarrassed about that, but that's a funny story to tell, like looking back.
Yeah, it's the stories like that, which I was kind of, when I asked the question, I was kind of looking for, because even you and Brandon, I know you guys know what you're doing, and obviously you're not gonna go off the deep end or anything, but usually when you see other people at networking events, that's when things start to go bad, especially when they're newbies and they're very, very desperate. I've seen the gamut of things happen. But really quickly, a funny story. Speaking of Quentin Tarantino, a friend of mine ran into Tim Roth at a networking event. And
cool.
And true story. This is a true story. My friend goes, hey. He goes, so he meets Tim Roth. I think it was his manager or agent, and he goes, so what do you do? He goes, oh, I'm an agent manager, and he goes, one of my clients is here, Tim Roth, and my friend says to Tim Roth, I shit you not. He goes, so what do you do? And Tim Roth goes, and Tim Roth goes, oh, I'm an actor. He goes, have you ever seen any of Quentin Tarantino's movies? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, I'm in pretty much all of them. And my friend was like, "Oh, really?" So my friend tried to give Tim Roth his business card. He goes, "No, I won't take yours, but you can take mine." And Tim just gave him his business card, and that was it. I told my friend he should whatever he has to do, even if he has to write a snail mail letter, just say, "Here you go." Just say, "Remember me? I'm the guy who didn't know who you were." I think he would have stuck so out. You know what I mean? I think he would have been so memorable that I think Tim would have remembered him if he had said that to him.
That would be a fantastic story, or kind of like a callback. Yeah, do you remember you? Because you're the guy who didn't remember who I was. And thanks for having the guts to remind me of that.
Yeah, you're that guy who doesn't know anything. All right. So. I'm sorry, Brandon.
I was going to say I think that's a great story to tell, because when you are at those networking events, you should do somewhat of your research on the people that are going to be there. And if you know somebody's name, but you don't know what they look like, Google them real quick. I mean, we have the amazing technology within our fingertips. You have a phone, type in, one of our good buddies, you could type in Jeff Howard. A lot of people, they know his movies, but they might not know who he is. He's the co-writer of Gerald's Game on Netflix, or Oculus, or Ouija Origin of Evil, and he's a great guy. So you could hear that, Jeff Howard's going to be at this event. You might not know what he looks like, but before you walk into that event, Google his name. You see what he looks like, and then you can walk up and not, make the mistake of actually bumping into Jeff Howard and saying, "What do you do?" And it makes you look a little more professional if you know who these guys are, even though they're not as famous as the guys in front of the cameras.
Yeah. I don't know why people don't use the internet more. Or you have your phone with you at all times. Everyone has their phone with them at all times. I don't know why.
Yep.
Yeah, seriously. And I don't know why people don't use it more when they're going to go talk to people. There was a thing here in Philadelphia for M. Night Shyamalan, and as soon as it was over and he was coming off the stage, people were asking him "Hey, how can I pitch you a script? This and that," and he was and he uses the answer, "Oh, just send it to my office." Well, I know exactly what's going to happen with that script if they ever send it, where it's just going to go right into the shredder. So you know what I mean? But it's just, you know what I mean? It's just. It's like they don't understand how anything works, and I think that it's like someone's just going to read their screenplay right then and there. You know what I mean? It's just, so, you know what I mean? They just think that everyone's just going to drop whatever they're doing. And I had a friend of mine who was trying to give a script to Lee Shriver, and I'm like, "No, don't do that. Please don't do that. Just leave him alone." Because she was like, because they were in the same place a couple of times. She goes, "I think he's in here. I think I'm going to give it to him." And I said, "Please don't do it." So.
That reminds me of the movie The Room with who was it? Judd Apatow's in that movie.
Ow, so painful.
Yeah. It's cringe. Have you seen The Room, Dave?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You remember the scene where he walks up to Judd Apatow, who's having dinner, and he wants to give him his script, and Judd Apatow's like, "I wouldn't read your script in a million years. Get out of here." That's what it reminds me of, is people trying to do too much. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you somehow find a way to build a relationship with these power movers in Hollywood, invite them out to coffee. That's a big thing that Erman and I do before we ask them to do events or whatever. We'll ask them if they'll meet up for coffee. And what that does is it lets them see that, you're not just trying to make first contact, say, "Hey, let me send you a script." You're saying, "Hey, let me buy you a coffee so we could talk. I want to get to know you." And I'm not saying the odds are a lot better, but that actually makes them more open to meeting up with you if they have the time. A lot of these guys are busy 11 months out of the year, 12 months out of the year. They don't have any time. But if they do, they're more than willing to meet for coffee and give advice.
Yeah. And the worst thing they can say is no. If they say no, it's okay, well, let me know when you are available, and I'd love to take you coffee then. So a lot of times we'll be out of town, too busy, or they're inundated with this current project. It's hey, okay, well, hopefully next time when you do have time to breathe, let me know, and I'll love to take you then. and just continue that conversation. Like, even if they say no, like, don't just drop off. Don't just end it there. Make sure you kind of just follow up. What is the worst that can happen than them saying no?
Yeah. And another thing I want to say real quick is that you don't just need to build those relationships with the big producers, the big directors, or whatnot. Try to find out who their assistants are, who interns for them, and build those relationships, because most likely those guys are going to move up in Hollywood. And if you already have a friendship, with, I don't know, the assistant to Steve Carroll, that person might be the next studio head or the next producer of Steve Carroll's production company. I don't know. And it works. I mean, Dana Brunetti is a big producer in Hollywood. He's done House of Cards. He's done Captain Phillips. And one of my really good friends is his assistant. And I think now he's his creative executive for companies. So, I mean, you never know where those assistants, interns are going to end up. A lot of people, see the assistant and they're like, oh, you're just his assistant. They don't realize how much work these guys put in for these big A-list producers, A-list stars, directors, and they get noticed, and that gets them bigger jobs. So that's something else I would share.
Definitely, assistants are important, and everybody said this too. Like, everybody who's been to our panels just said, make sure you get make sure you get on the radar of assistants. They will become something bigger in the future, and they are technically gatekeepers to anything you do with their bosses.
Exactly.
You send them an email. If you're not nice to them, they can literally block it. Also, agents, managers, and publicists, get along with them too, because they're the ones who are the team of these power players. So make sure you have a good standing relationship with them as well.
Somebody once told me a tip, and I want to get you guys your guys' opinion. That was excellent English, by the way. I'm talking as like you guys' opinion. So I want to get both of your opinions on this. Somebody once told me that if you want to get a screenplay to, like, let's just say a producer, a manager, an agent, that you should send it specifically to the assistant first. And what I mean by that is you actually address it to them and say, like, if I was like, let's just say, Brandon, let's just say you were Erman's assistant, and I addressed it. And you said, and I wrote in the email, or I wrote in whatever, and I said, Mr. Waits, I think this would be an excellent project for your boss, Mr. Baradi. If you read this, I really think blah blah blah. Maybe even write something in the subject line just to get him to open the email, like, this has been script recommended by one of the script reading services, and in the body you make it right to them. That way and you are sincere about it. That way you're not just kind of like, treating them like sort of like a lackey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And saying like, hey, look, I just want to get to your boss. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good idea, honestly. I think that you don't even have to mention, like, if I was Erman's assistant and you're sending it to me, I don't even think you have to mention Erman by sending it to me, because you know that if it's good, I'm going to get it into Erman's hands. And if I get it into his hands as his assistant, then I'm going to get recognized for finding the material. So you could send it to me like, dear Brandon, I wrote this amazing script that I think fits your guys' slate of films, and I would like for you to check it out and give me your feedback. And you never mention Erman's name, and I feel like, okay, I'm being recognized. I'm his assistant, and this person's recognized me as part of the company. And, I read the script, and I love it, and I'm going to reply back to you. You know what? I think this has some potential, and I'm going to take it to Erman. And I think by doing that, you're right. It develops a relationship with the assistant and makes them feel important as well, because like Erman said, they are the gatekeepers. They are the guys who get the screenplays. They read the screenplays, and they're the ones that tell their bosses whether they're good or not.
Yep. In addition to that, 100% agree with Brandon. In addition to that, I would go with the assistant too, because if you go to the agent or manager, the first thing they're going to ask is, how much are you offering? So, because they think of it from the business aspect, but if you hit up the assistant, what Brandon said, they may think, okay, well, this script is fantastic. This is the assistant might think this is my in. This is my way of getting bigger in the industry. So, I think it's smart to hit up the assistants first. I actually didn't think about it that way until you mentioned it, and I was like, that makes sense. So, I do agree with you guys on that one.
So, and just to continue along with that too, query letters. You guys have interned at agencies. You guys have been around all these producers, and now, and as you guys have progressed in your careers, how have query letters? Do they still work as well as they used to? Like, if I were to email somebody, first off, do they even work still? And two, if they do, like, what are some of the things that you've seen or heard or producers have said that have actually gotten them to either open up the email or the assistants to open up the email rather, and actually, I think that's the hardest part, because I think you see all these emails that keep coming in, and I remember talking to somebody at William Morris Endeavor, and he said that he usually 99% of the time he just, without even opening, he just clicks on the side panel there and just clicks delete. You know what I mean? And it doesn't even open them.
Yeah, I think it depends on the how busy the company is. There's smaller production companies that are very successful. I interned with BenderSpink. At that time, it was called BenderSpink, under JC Spink and Chris Bender. They're the producers of We're the Millers, the Hangover movies, a lot of comedies. They were also Oscar nominated for A History of Violence. So I think one of the important things is there's so many companies like that are successful but not really known. And by researching them, seeing what type of genres they do, you can send those query letters. And if your screenplay matches their slate of films, I think they would be open to it. But you need to be able to word your query in a certain way. It can't be a whole bunch of rambling. It has to be short, sweet, and to the point. When I interned there, they did go through query letters, but there had to be something within the meat of the email that interests them. And BenderSpink was known for mostly comedies, like I said. If they got, I don't know, some drama that didn't fit their slate, they're not going to look at it. They're looking more for the stuff. They have a first look deal with New Line Cinema. So they're looking for films that New Line wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And on that same note, try to be succinct as possible. Don't make it a long letter, because obviously no one has time to read that. Don't send an email. Don't send an email with a message of that's to take up 5 to 6 paragraphs. They're not going to have time for that. Absolutely don't. If you're sending a query letter, don't attach a script already. That's a big no-no.
Yeah.
The point of a query letter is to get the attention of the person reading, not to already send your material. So that's a huge no-no. And I've experienced that at Mosaic, when I interned there. People doing that. As a writer, I've done that in the past too. My mistake. But I've grown from it. But and on the same notes, for query letters, I think they still do work, but you got to remember that people like WME, they're going to work with you if you already had credits, if you already have a name. So if you're brand new to the industry, try not to send letters to agencies of that stature, CA, WME, UTA. Aim for the smaller ones, aim for the boutique ones, because they're the ones who are still looking for talents, new talents. So my advice is to go for the quote unquote smaller level management companies and agencies.
Yeah, because once it gets into their hands, they're the guys that can take it up to those bigger studios, management companies. Yeah.
And that kind of leads into my next question. You guys started the Film Empire, and there's a writing contest. That's sort of it's kind of the nucleus of the whole thing. And somebody once also told me that the writing competitions are really what they look for, because they can see now if this writing piece can stand out against all these other writers. And that way you're not sending, emails to managers, whoever, just saying, "Hey, read my screenplay," because they don't know if it sucks. I mean, let's be honest here, guys. There's probably a good chance it does suck. You know what I mean? I remember there was there's a guy on Twitter called the Bitter Screenwriter or the Bitter Screen Reader, and he just, he's seen so many of these scripts, and he's just like, "What the hell is going on here?" So that's why I think, again, screenwriting competitions. I think that piece of advice is really good. Just making sure you focus on the writing competitions, but just to go into that, you guys created the Film Empire, and when you guys decided to form a partnership, what is your screenwriting competition aspect? What is, was there? Did you think that there was maybe or feel that there was a need for a different kind of a screenwriting competition? You know what I mean? Like, so what was kind of the impetus to create the Film Empire and the writing competition?
A lot of. Go ahead, Erman.
Yeah. So, being doing events and all this stuff for people, that was one level of helping people network and break in, right? So having that face to face. We wanted to take it up a notch and reach people on a global scale. So because events are very brick and mortar, right? So when you do contests, literally anyone from anywhere in the world can win and take a meeting and take a Skype session with any of the mentors. So what we wanted to do was mentor meetings. So it's one thing to win a contest and get cash, right? Awesome, cool. You got $1,500. Awesome. That pays your rent for the month. That's fantastic. But what we wanted to do was have people already in the industry give feedback and mentor meetings to our winners, because it's more than just a meeting. It's about cultivating their talents, and our winners get to ask questions that they may not have a chance to otherwise. For example, one of our mentors for our very recent mentor contest is Tommy Harper, who was formerly of Bad Robot, but he executive producer for like the Mission Impossible films and the Star Wars films, etc. So on a regular day, someone in London may not be able to meet him, right? But through our contest, we break down that wall. Our winner gets a chance to have a Skype session or in-person meeting, depending on where they're located, with people like him, because it allows them to cultivate their talents and ask questions that they would have no other chance of doing so in any other situation. So we want to provide a kind of a platform, if you will, for blossoming filmmakers and screenwriters that could use the extra push or advice from people already working in the industry.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what Erman is saying, and something that I said earlier, by doing this, our winners are able to, in their mentor meetings, they're able to develop the relationship, instead of, just bumping into them and saying, "Hey, read my script." This is their opportunity to sit in front of them, build a relationship. If they hit it off, who knows? Maybe the producer of their meeting loves the script that they won through our contest, and that producer now wants to produce their pilot or their feature film, or maybe just likes their attitude and wants to hire them for some position. So our contest mentor meetings is the opportunity to develop more intimate meetings, mentorships for our winners.
The first thing to any relationship is getting in the room with somebody, So what Brandon said, even if they don't get their script made per se from this producer or whoever they're meeting, they may have something else for them.
Yeah. And the mentor meetings are important. That's the person's opportunity to provide a first impression. So we're all about developing relationships. That's how Erman and I both have started off and made our way to where we are now within Hollywood. We're still young. We still have a long ways to go. But that's like the core of where we've got where we are. And we're trying to help other people that may have the screenplays that are really good, but don't have the opportunity to get in the room. and we're opening those doors for those people.
And I think that's the crux of all this, opening doors. You know what I mean? I think that's this whole business is about relationships. Hell, life is about relationships, and I think opening doors is one of the key parts of it.
Exactly.
So how can people enter the screenwriting competition, by the way?
Oh, yes.
Either the filmempire.com or you can find us on Film Freeway. Filmfreeway.com is the platform we use. I think a lot of festivals and contests use as well. But definitely check us out at the filmempire.com.
Yeah, and I'm going to link to that in the show notes, everybody, at davebullis.com. But before we sort of kind of before we get to the parting thoughts, I just want to ask one final question, Brandon and Erman. Is there anything? So, Brandon, I'll shoot you this question to you first. Is there anything that you'd like to say to sort of put a period at the end of this whole conversation?
No, I just really, and I know I keep stressing it. To get into the industry, you got to have thick skin. You have to be able to. You got to be patient. One of our good buddies, Adam Robitel, he's the director of The Taking of Deborah Logan and a new movie called Escape Room. I want to say when we met him over at Blumhouse, also he did Insidious: The Last Key. He told us that he'd been pushing for 10, 15 years, Erman?
Yeah.
And he said you have to have a lot of patience. And it's been about 15 years, I want to say, that he's finally getting his opportunities. Doing Sony movie now. He's pitching all over. The doors have been open for him, but opportunities are just coming for him. And that's because he's pushed through the ups and downs of being in the industry. And there's going to be lots of downs. There's going to be days where, you get an email from a producer that says, leave me the fuck, excuse me, I won't cuss. Leave me alone.
Yeah, you can curse. You can curse. It's all right.
Okay. Yeah. I've gotten some where a producer would be like, leave me the fuck alone, don't message me again. It happens. And it's going to feel like a punch to the stomach, and it sucks. But
Yeah.
the people who really want to be in the industry, they're just going to shrug that off and go on to the next producer, to the next director that they want to work with, and try to get into their door and develop a relationship with those guys. So develop those relationships, have a thick skin. No, it's not going to be easy. Just keep building relationships, and those relationships are going to grow upon each other. So those are probably my parting words.
Do you think it's wise though? Like if a producer would say that, like, leave me the fuck alone. Like, because you could be the next big thing, and you could come back and say, hey, you're the guy who told me to fuck off.
I'm hoping. But no, I don't think
that's our that's us.
Yeah, the producer that I talked to, I want to say he was more so a co-producer or whatever, but I'm not really going to take that to heart. If I work with him someday, awesome. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was just having a bad day the day he told me that. But there's so many producers out there in Hollywood, and majority of them want to see other people succeed, people who are dedicated and want to be in this industry, and they're willing to talk to you. But, in every industry, there's a jerk out there, and those jerks, their karma will come. But yeah, you just have to have that thick skin, because you are going to get some emails from some rude people. Sometimes, it's going to happen. So just have that thick skin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because just like a few months ago, I emailed this agent, and it wasn't even about me. It was I was inviting him, not him. I was inviting his clients to an event of ours, and this guy should have said, "Please take me off your list." I'm like, I'm asking you about your clients. Don't you want that? Like, don't you want something for your client? And people like that, it's just like, well, you got to consider, even though it is a small town and word gets around a lot, he's just one person. She's just one person, So there's always other people to contact in the industry. So don't put yourself down if you get a no, because it's gonna happen a lot. So there's gonna be a lot of no's, but once you get a yes, that's what's important. You can get 100 no's and get that one yes, but that one yes is what's going to be the significant, answer that you'll get in your career. Going with Brandon said, have thick skin. Definitely keep networking. And I don't know if everyone knows this out there listening, but like we mentioned earlier, Brandon's not from LA. He's from Arizona. I just moved to LA last year, so I've been networking for 5 years. So with that being said, you can literally network from anywhere. So with the invention of the internet, there's no excuse not to be able to reach out to somebody and create that rapport from the comfort of your own home. So even if you're not in LA, you can still network. Networking isn't about the four walls around you. It's about the action of creating a relationship with somebody.
There you go, Gary V.
the Gary V. Yeah.
I see a lot of Gary Vee stuff. I actually got his latest book, and I took a few notes. And I have a friend of mine who does a lot of social media stuff, and he swears by Gary Vee and everything he does. And I have another friend who does social media stuff, and he goes, "Don't buy books on social media." He goes, "Just do it." So I don't know. There's so many tips on social media, and I mean, Erman, you got 26,000 followers, so I'm pretty jealous.
Has to start somewhere. It has to start at a point of where I can grow that. I like to tell people this: to get $1 million, you have to start with $1. So for me, 26 didn't come overnight. I had to grow that for the last 5 years, and I want to thank people like you who asked to do interviews, because if you were to Google me, you can find all the interviews. I can't sell out an event because I can't sell out an event without people being able to find an interview. It's like, oh, it's a cool event. But wait a minute, I can't find anything on you. Why would I buy tickets to your event? Or why would I even go to the Film Empire if I can't find an interview about the Film Empire? So I want to thank podcasts like you and any other press that provide opportunities like this, because you're the reason why we get 26,000, followers. Social media is very important. Definitely grow it. I guess to go back on the other question about what you can, parting words, but definitely social media is important nowadays. So definitely grow your social media when you can. And social media is a different monster, but also kind of like what Brandon said earlier, you constantly do some outreach. You might find some cool people on Twitter that you may not meet in person in any other given situation. So definitely hit them up, contact them, and kind of build that relationship over time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think social media is important, especially when you use it correctly. You actually are using it, and you're actually out there, trying to network and meet people, and just generally whatever your goal is, you're trying to achieve with that goal. But guys, yeah, seriously, that's how we met, man. Just randomly, and I've met so many people on Twitter, and now I'm meeting more and more people on Instagram. This is just a side note, by the way. I don't know, maybe you guys see this too. I see a lot of these. You know what? I shouldn't even get into it. I'll say that for
do
time.
Do it.
Okay, I will give it a peer pressure. So I see a lot of these models, let's say, and I saw this girl the other day. I followed her Instagram months and months ago, and this picture came up, and it's her like bent over on a balcony wearing almost nothing, and obviously because I'm a heterosexual guy, so it caught my eye. But here's the funny part, okay? In the text of the post, there was all this text about like she's gonna knock somebody out. She's talking about like empowering herself. She's talking about this. I mean, it was so many points of topics she was going back and forth on, and none of them had anything to do with the photo that she took of her bent over on this balcony. And I'm just like, what message are you trying to convey here? Like, I'm lost. I don't know what to feel about this post. And
Dave, first off, I don't appreciate you talking about my girlfriend like that.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, E.
No, you'll get a lot of those nowadays. You'll have like a model take a picture of themselves in a bikini, and they try to have some type of inspirational quote underneath it. It's like, what? Like you're gonna get a like. You're gonna get a like on the picture because of what you're wearing, not because of the quote underneath it. You know. So
yeah, it's stuff like that, and I just don't know. You know, I kind of go back with, you know, in social media, and we could do a whole podcast about this, but they always say the VRIN, which is, you know, VRIN, which is valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-exchangeable or non-substitutable. And you look at that, and I kind of, I've kind of had that in my mind now as I'm looking through other people's social media, and I could see now why some people have taken off and other people haven't. And it's just, you know, a lot of times when I see those photos from different, you know, models and stuff like that with the inspirational quotes, I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know, because other models are doing the exact same thing where they're posting, you know, and they're posing in a certain way, and they're also posting an inspirational quote or whatever. So the rarity of that kind of goes down. By the way, I'm a huge Gary Vee guy. I've studied, you know, some of Tai Lopez's stuff, you know, back and forth about, you know, some of the social media stuff. So I could talk your ears off about this, but I won't though, because you'll be all bored and be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? So I'll just be like, you know what I mean? Like it just sometimes with social media, I honestly think it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole with this stuff, and I will save all that for another time, everybody. So, Brandon, where can people find you out online? Brandon, you there?
Oh, geez, I think we lost him. Well, if we lost him, I can give you his socials.
Yeah,
yeah. So you can find Brandon Waits at BWAITES07. That is BWaits07 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me at Erman_LA, ERMAN_LA on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find the Film Empire on Instagram at the Film Empire and on Twitter at the_film_empire. You can also find us at MixKnowledgy on both Twitter and Instagram. MixKnowledgy.
And I will link to all that, everybody, in the show notes at davebullis.com. Erman, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Brandon, I want to say thank you for coming on. I think we lost you. In fact, I know we did. I could see he's not in the room anymore. But I want to say thank you for both of you for coming on.
Thank you, sir. Until next time.
Find Dave at davebullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.